Brilliant. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on our program Leadership in a Technology-Driven World. My name's Russell Miller. I'm Director of Learning Solutions and Innovation here at Imperial College Business School, Executive Education. And we'll just give it a few moments for people to join to see the participant numbers rising. So feel free to bring your sandwiches along, whatever your weapon of choice is for lunch, if you're here in the UK, it's lunchtime. And if you're joining from further afield, I don't know, tea, coffee, dinner maybe, depending on where you are. We typically get people for joining our programs and kind of webinars from all over the world. So there may be some of you folks from overseas who are looking to travel to join us for this program that starts in a few weeks' time. So let me just see the participant numbers. Yep, okay, welcome everybody. That's great. So let's get going. So Franz, would you mind sharing your slide deck?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I thought I'd done that already and I haven't, so my deep apologies. Here we are.
There we are, great. Okay, so welcome. You're in the right place, in case you were wondering. Leadership in a Technology-Driven World. The program kind of starts in just a few weeks' time now. We have about an hour today. My name is Russell Miller, as I mentioned. I'm Director of Learning Solutions and Innovation. I'm here at the Business School, Executive Education, and I'm joined today by our Program Director, Franz Kamfer. Franz, do you want to just kind of say a quick hello?
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you for joining us and looking forward to discussing this program with you and playing a role all the way through for those of you who choose to join us. So hopefully you'll do that. And I'm looking forward to today. So thank you, Russell.
Brilliant. Thanks, Franz. So more from Franz in a few moments. So we want to dedicate this session to giving you a real flavor of what the program's like. So Franz is going to talk us through some of the material. And so hopefully actually you'll get some value out of your time with us today as well. Some really interesting topics that Franz is going to cover a bit later on around expansion from managing to leading, which is a core theme that runs through the program. So some quite insightful information from Franz coming away very soon. So here's what we're going to cover today. We'll get straight into the content pretty quickly. I just want to take a minute or so to just give an overview of Imperial and why we think we're a great choice of learning partner to help you understand and grow your leadership practice in this kind of technologically driven world. So perhaps if you could just bump the slide forward, Franz, thank you. So Imperial, I'm not going to read the slide. You can read the slide yourselves, but I just wanted to draw your attention really to a couple of the statistics, and in particular, our global online MBA. It's a really highly ranked MBA program globally. It's number 2 now in the world, which is fantastic. And actually, this is a face-to-face program that you'll be joining, not an online program, but you do get access to the learning platform. It's the same learning platform that supports our global online MBA. So we actually open that up for you a few days before the program starts, and that gives you an opportunity to get to know your fellow learners before you arrive, understand a little bit about each other's leadership journey so far, and kind of challenges, and where they're working or industries. So you get to kind of pre-meet your fellow learners before you arrive with us in London. So you get access to that kind of really great learning platform. There's a statistic that's not on here as well, which is because it happened so recently. Actually, yesterday, we've just been ranked number 2 in the UK for our research in business and management as well. So we do an awful lot of learning, both in terms of postgraduate learning and executive education, but that's underpinned by a real excellence in research. So you can be sure that the material that you're learning and being taken through on the program is a really kind of strong, has a strong research base underneath it, which is great. The other element that's not on the slide as well is the focus we have on bringing both sort of academics and practitioners together to create a program that is not only kind of robust and research based, but also very much practical in nature. This is a program where we want you to take stuff immediately and apply it in your role. So the learning is very easy to operationalize. So this really nice blend of practitioners and academics coming together to help you develop your leadership practice is a really important part of the program. And Franz will talk to you about some of the program contributors and those that are the kind of leading sections of the program a little bit later on in the session today. Franz, could you just click me forward a little bit? This is the slide where back in the pandemic in the virtual world, I'd always make the joke that I'd left my bike tied against the lamppost. But it's sort of like that street now in kind of South Kensington, Exhibition Road, is now very busy once again, which is great. And we're really excited about having people back on campus and learning in our facilities in central London. We have an amazing executive education facility that we just started to refurb when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. It's a state-of-the-art facility, great catering, great breakout rooms, flat floor space. So you're going to have a really nice physical environment in which to learn as well, which is important. And also, if you are staying in town, if you're not from London and you're staying overnight, you're right in the thick of it in terms of things to do in the evening and enjoying the museums and culture around the place as well, which is good. Franz, do you want to just put me forward as well?
All right.
Thank you. So the program structure itself begins on 13th of June, which is just a few weeks' time. Takes place in our South Kensington campus. And one of the unique features of the program, apologies for my phone going in the background, by the way. One of the things that you can do before you join us on the program is actually spend time with Franz. And Franz, you may kind of expand on that during your session, but you spend time with Franz to help us understand where you're at right now in terms of your leadership practice and what your expectations are for the program, what you really like to focus on. So we can personalize as much as possible your kind of learning through the program. And those sessions are really valuable so that it really ties the learning that you get into what's going on for you right now and some of the challenges, opportunities you might face in your current positions and roles. So that's a really unique part of the program. You get a certificate at the end of the program as well. We'll talk more a bit about that later. But Franz, if you'd like to just push me on the slide. So I won't read the timetable. This is also available on our website as well. So if you go to the Imperial College Business School Executive Education pages online, you'll find all of this information and you can kind of expand these sections to find out what's in them. But I just wanted to kind of talk through the flow really over the course of the 5 days. So the program is split into kind of 3 key areas. So leading self, leading others and teams, and then leading the enterprise. So there's a logical flow through the program, and you get to spend time thinking about you as a leader and your sort of slightly introspectively, and then you also get an opportunity to think about how you lead others and how you lead at an organizational level as well. So the program is organized around those broadly those 3 themes. You may not notice them so directly as you're going through the program, but they're there nonetheless. So at that point, I think it's now's a good time to hand over to you, Franz, and Franz is going to give us a little bit more of a deeper look into one of the key areas of the program, and hopefully you'll find it interesting, and it's reflective of the nature of the program content as well. So Franz, over to you.
Thank you, Russell. As I said, it's really good to be with everybody today, and welcome and thank you for joining us. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into 1 or 2 areas, but what I really want to spend some time on is talking about this notion of moving from managing, and we're all very good at managing, controlling, directing. That's what kind of got us here. And we'll talk about what does it take to lead at a different level. And so the whole program, the backdrop to it, if a red thread, if you like, through the back of it is making that expansion. What does that take? And you'll notice there are lots of subjects. So I think there are lots of really good speakers. I'm a practitioner. I'm not an academic. So my background is I was the chief executive of a European organization. I led the expansion from South Africa, hence my funny accent, to the UK, and was on the international board and was responsible globally for customer service. And that was the 6th largest insurance broking organization in the world. So I come out of a very strong commercial background, but I've been doing this work for the last 15 years. So I bring that as a program director, and I work very closely with the academics to make this, and Russell made a really good point, the program has to be practical for me. It's no good us creating insights for you and then you not being able to implement those. So it's really important from my perspective that we talk to you about what are you going to do differently in the day-to-day work that you make, because you cannot make the expansion from managing to leading without operating differently. You can get an insight, but you can't put it into practice. That's not going to be useful for you. So just to be really clear about that. And Russell mentioned that one-to-one conversation with me before you come on the program. I'm deeply interested in context. So what's your context? Where are you going to lead your leadership practice in your journey? Where are you? What do you need to expand into? And then we make sure we amplify what we need to amplify in the program to meet the needs of the people in the room. So this is not a program where we just want to download stuff to you. It's highly interactive, lots of breakouts, lots of peer discussions, lots of networking that takes place, learning from people around you and the faculty. So the faculty will give you good stuff, but actually the most important thing is how are you going to apply this? How are you going to put this into practice? The other thing that we want to provide you with is an ability to create what we call your leadership signature. So through the program, what's your purpose as a leader? Who are you as a leader? What are your values? What are your strengths? And what kind of leadership do you wish to deploy? And how do you need to expand into that? So that's a big part of the program. And hence all of these subjects, if you like, that are in front of you are intended to build those skills and capacities to be able to do that. So that's the background to the program. As you know, you probably know we've been running it for 4 or 5 years. This will be the 8th or the 9th iteration of it, and we get outstanding feedback, particularly around this is highly useful for me and practical, and I can implement it. And again, I'm very, very passionate about making sure that that happens. So let me give you an example. So let's take day 3, leading others, and coaching. You will see is a big part of this. One of the ideas we think is that you need to be able to coach people in order to release yourself to be more strategic and to actually grow the talent around you. And so we will talk about why coaching. We won't tell you why it's important. You'll tell us why it's important. We'll use a coaching methodology to do that. And in a lot of these sessions, they're about creating the container for us to learn together what the important aspects of leadership are. And I often use the maxim that becoming a leader is not as much about learning new stuff. It's about remembering as well. And many of you will remember when you were being led by somebody poorly, what you didn't like about that. And those people that led you well typically would have given you space. They would have challenged you. They would have created the opportunity for you to develop and grow. And then a crazy thing happens. We get promoted. And what happens is we get amnesia. We forget what it was like to be led. And for some reason, we want to control the heck out of everything because we want to make an impact. And so remembering that actually leadership is about creating the culture, creating conditions for people to do their best work. So that's what the program is to make sure that we're doing that as a backdrop, if that makes sense. I want to focus for a bit and add value. My hope is to you, whether you join us on the program or not, and we hope that you do. But if you don't, I want you to take away something from today that I hope will be useful for you, and we can have a look at some of these concepts. So one of the things I'm going to invite you to do, if there are any questions around the concepts that I'm talking about and this idea of expansion from managing to leading, please pop them into the Q&As. Sorry, Leth, when you say age restrictions, sorry, I didn't see the question, but I've just noticed it. When you see, can you just tell me more about that? Is that in terms of age at the upper end, which I am at the upper end, or at the lower end? I just want to understand that question a little better, please, if you don't mind. Leth, if you just pop that in, I'll come back to you and I'll talk about that some more. So let's talk for a minute about this idea of expanding from managing to leading. And a lot of you will recognize this. You're in the current spot that you're in. You're in the space of, I'm spending time being highly controlling and directive. I'm an expert in my subject matter, whatever that might be, and I'm really good at getting things done, and I'm looking let us know. Just to say to you, no, I don't have any restriction on the upper end at all. I'm older than I look, and I'm going to continue learning and developing for the rest of my life. So there's no restriction from that point of view at all, just to be very clear about that. So I'm a leader. I'm actually, I'm really good at what I'm doing. I have a lot of the answers. I have good experience. And what we typically do is we overemphasize our expertise in solving problems. So we're doing, we're planning, we're budgeting, we're organizing. And then all of a sudden we get promoted. And now we have people reporting to us, and we have to make this shift. And this shift is from being high controlling and directive actually to being very low on control, but I'm going to be high in terms of influence. I'm going to need to move into being influential in a complex world and a complex environment. And that is a challenge for a lot of leaders, because the need for making that shift. So let me just clear the drawings, and so I can shift this on. In order to make this expansion from controlling and directing to this high influencing complexity, and Marshall Goldsmith said it best when he said, what got you here will not get you there. And so how do I shift? And there are a number of things I need to shift. I need to shift my identity. And for many of us, we shift from being, the great analogy that I can use is that of Benjamin Zanders when he talks about being a conductor, and he's a Chicago Philharmonic conductor, famous guy, talks about the art of possibilities and the mindset it needs to evoke excellence in others. So how do we do that? It's the shift in mindset needs to be, I'm no longer playing instruments, but I'm now the conductor. And my job as the conductor is to create shiny eyes in my orchestra so that there are shiny eyes in the audience. And I just love that analogy of, as leaders, my job is to create shiny eyes in my people so that I have shiny eyes in my stakeholders, my customers, the people that I'm trying to serve. And I think that that's a great analogy in terms of what we are trying to achieve. That backdrop through the whole program is to support you in making that shift. And it takes an identity shift, because it's no longer, I'm no longer superhuman. I'm not Superman, I'm not Superwoman. I'm actually now a conductor, and I'm trying to make supermen and superwomen, superhumans out of the people that I'm leading. So that mindset shift and identity shift is a key part of the program. Is what does it take for us to make that expansion, if you like? You'll have to adopt new practices and new habits. And for some, it's quite scary, because I'm known for my expertise. And what we would like you to become known for is your absolute excellence at getting the best out of others. Another analogy I could use is, how do you multiply your impact through others so that you can operate at a more strategic level and add even greater value to the organization? And that's what we are focused on in making this happen. So this expansion to leading then starts to look like there's a way of being as a leader. Can I be authentic? Can I actually demonstrate a sense of purpose? And can I evoke excellence in others? So how am I motivating and inspiring people? How am I making sure I'm gaining alignment with folks? I'm creating the context. And the most important thing for me is developing the culture that even without you, this organization is going to be highly, highly successful. And so this expansion, one of my favorite leaders, someone that I've worked with, Red Hat and IBM are clients and have been clients of ours in the past. And one of the things that Jim Whitehurst, who's a superb individual, by the way, he's written a book called Open Leadership, which you might want to take a look at. And they have, for those of you who know technology, Red Hat is an organization that's based on open source principles, and they lead in an open source way. They're highly, highly consensus driven, lots of debate, lots of discussion. And this guy was, he used to be the chief executive of Delta when Delta went into Chapter 13, and he brought them out as one of the most successful airlines out of Chapter 13. And what he did in that process was learn that as I've developed as a leader, I've come to understand that my job is to create the context for my people to do far more than they thought was possible. And I just love that. Again, as the conductor, how do I make sure that people believe that they can achieve far more than they thought was possible? That is, I think, demonstrates a really great leader in terms of what they're up to. Let me see if there are any other questions. Just want to check. Okay, so if there are any questions arising out of the comments that I'm making, please put them into the chat and I'll answer them as far as I possibly can. So if there are any. So as I say, this key expansion point, what's the identity I need to adopt? And one of the things that we will do through the program is to support you in creating what your leadership signature needs to be. So given your context, where are you? What is it that you want to expand into? And giving you a clear definition of what that looks like for you. So we'll ask you to contemplate what your purpose is as a leader. What's your leadership purpose? What you're trying to make happen in the world. Your current identity and what your future identity might look like. So moving from the oboe player, if you like, to the conductor, that is an identity shift. I will be seen differently. I will operate differently. So how do you want to do that? We'll talk about the mindset shift that needs to take place. So it's no longer about me. It's about me creating the conditions, the culture for people to do their best work. Adopting new practices and habits will invite you to be very specific about those practices and habits that we'll ask you to adopt. We won't tell you what they are. You'll decide what they are given the work that you do with us on the program. And then we're going to ask you to put them into practice. And the reason we want to do that is that the way to change your mind. So what got you here won't get you there. That's one thing. The second thing is you cannot think your way into new behavior. How do you behave your way into new thinking? How do you create new neural pathways? That's through the practices and the habits that you adopt. And again, we'll encourage you to decide what those key indicators are. What are the practices that you'll need to develop in order to make this expansion? And it's moved from doing to being. So becoming more comfortable in the unknown, making sure that you are comfortable in this new identity and the new skills that you need, and coaching will be one of those. And again, I want to just emphasize the highly practical nature and interactive nature of the teaching that we do. It's not about teaching, it's about facilitating learning, and it is about creating the opportunity for you to discover things for yourselves and put them into practice and make that happen. So as leaders, we're up to many things. And I think in this expanded role that we are talking about, we need to be highly flexible in what we get up to on a day-to-day basis. So as a leader at the center of this model, I can lead by giving vision, direction, strategy. That's typically what I do. As a manager, typically I'm controlling things. I'm making sure that I need to produce. I'm driving output and making sure that we are doing what we need to do. In my language, we are operationalizing what we set as a vision and a direction. So typically the chief executive or the leader of a particular team will have a vision, have a direction, strategic imperatives that we need to operate to. And as a manager, I'm going to put in the structures and processes to make sure that that's doing. Now, a lot of us hang out here in these two places. And there are other elements that we need to pay attention to. There are going to be moments when somebody just doesn't know how to do something. And I'm going to need to teach them. So I will train them. I will teach them how to do things. There are going to be times when I might need to be the consultant. What do I need to consult to, bring my expertise to bear? There will be times when I'm going to be a mentor. And the word mentor is an interesting word because it derives from Greek mythology, where a guy called Mentor was a friend of Odysseus. And Odysseus went away to the Trojan War. And as he left, he handed his son Telemachus to Mentor and said, Mentor, please teach him everything you know. And so often we think coaching and mentoring are the same thing or pretty close. They are distinctly different. And there are going to be moments when we want to coach people. How do we coach people? What do we need to do? How do we get them to ask them questions to get them to think for themselves? And we are very good at managing, leading, teaching, consulting, and mentoring. Mentoring, and the best definition I can give you, my wife came up with this definition. She's a partner in our business. And she said something that I think was really useful. You go to a mentor for good answers, and you go to a coach for good questions. And just that difference, I think, is very useful to understand. And as a leader, I think it's going to be really useful for you to build the capacities in all of this model. So there are going to be times when you need to manage. There are going to be times when you need to mentor. Sometimes you're going to need to consult. Sometimes you're going to need to teach. And sometimes you're going to need to manage and get the outputs done properly. And there are moments when coaching is going to be the best thing you can do. And that expansion from managing to leading, we think, requires a coaching mindset in order to do that effectively. So that's what we're going to spend time on as part of the program. But we will also talk about leading, and we'll talk about managing, and we'll talk about mentoring and what the aspects of that and when to consult. So having and broadening your range in making sure that you can deliver what's required in the particular circumstance that we're in. Sorry, and Khalid, absolutely not. The more nationalities we can have, the better from my perspective. The diversity in the world brings us really innovative and creative ideas. So I would absolutely welcome any nationality. Absolutely not. Yeah. So somebody anonymously asked a question. Why do you think there's still so many poor leaders in positions of power? That's a great question. And I think context matters. So if your organization is born and bred in a particular way and they're highly directive and they're getting results in that way, unfortunately, what has happened, I think people are putting results before people. And we've learned a valuable lesson in COVID, I would believe, and something that all the people that I'm talking to, the chief executives and the senior leaders that I'm talking to in my day job and the work that I do and on our programs, they discovered something. And one of my clients is a very big financial institution. And I kept asking, what are you learning about yourself through COVID? And what they said to me was, I've needed to learn to balance relationship with task. And I needed to shift the emphasis from task first to relationship first. And I think we are at the point of a big shift in consciousness about leadership. So my hope is that thinking will prevail. And the fact that lots of organizations are talking about hybrid working, giving greater freedom, putting people first, I think is something that is positive that's come out of COVID that I hope we'll hold on to going forward. Now it's up to us as individuals to start to shift the consciousness of the leadership that we bring and also in the organization that we are. How do we start to influence and start to create space for people to grow into? If you think about it and from your own perspective, your greatest need going through the ranks in an organization is to be seen and heard. Am I growing? Am I doing my best work? Obviously, being paid the right amount of money is important, but the minute you are paid okay for the job that you're doing, guess what? That ceases to be the motivation. You want to come to work for meaning, for the fact that I'm doing good work, that I'm having a positive impact, I'm growing, I'm developing. That's the real need. And for those organizations who don't provide that culture and that ability for that to happen, I think they struggle. They may have short-term gains, but in the long term, they're not going to be successful. And I've seen organizations who are focused more on tasks and people fail in the long term because they haven't taken care of the folks and the development of their talent and so on. And this proverbial war for talent, I think, is going to accelerate. There's no doubt about that. So I hope that's answered, Khalid, that question, or sorry, the anonymous person. And Khalid, I hope that I've answered your question on that as well. So if there's anything else you want to add in questions, then please do that. So this idea of being the kind of leaders creating the conditions. Oh, and by the way, it's not to say that coaching is a panacea or mentoring is a panacea. You want to use the right mix of these skills in the context that you're in. So when we together, if you come on the program with us and a fire bell goes, it's no good me asking you which door would you like to go out of. That can't be a consensus-driven thing. That has to be, please leave this room at this door and go downstairs and make sure that you collected this and we collect and we make sure everybody's okay. That's highly directive. There are moments when I have to be highly directive. There are other moments, and we think there are more moments to create an open culture. Because for most organizations, what are they looking for? They're looking for creativity, innovation. They're saying in order to survive, we're going to have to be more creative. We're going to have to be more innovative. Guess what? You're not going to achieve that if you do not have an open mindset that says, how do I create culture? How do I create conditions for people to do their best work? How do I make sure that the right ideas are arising and we're hearing them, we're seeing them, etc. So coming back to the person who asked the question anonymously, yeah, it's tough. How do we start to challenge when we have poor leadership in front of us or above us? How do we start encouraging people to operate differently, to create the kind of conditions? The way to do that sometimes is experiment in my own team And then what happens is people start looking and say, I wonder what's happening there. That looks like a good team, etc. How do we make sure we do some of that? And becoming a role model for that is potentially what you could step into, I guess, is one of those. So if there are any other questions about this leadership dynamic, please let me know. So I would love for you to let me know in the chat or in the question and answers, where do you think you are on this expansion from managing to leading? So on the left, am I low on influence and complexity versus high on managing? Am I up towards the other end where I am more, and one of the ways I could describe this is what we find is that there are expert leaders. They are the leaders that are more short-term driven. They are more operational in what they're up to. They're really good at getting things done. Excellent at doing that. And then the next level up is what I would call an achiever leader. That's somebody who starts to work through others. They work through their teams. They have a little bit of a longer time horizon. An expert typically has a 3 to 6 month horizon. An achiever has probably a 12 to 15 month horizon. And then you get the catalytic leaders who create the culture and the conditions, and they have a 3 to 5 year horizon. They're looking at how are we building the culture, the skills, the capabilities in the organization for that longer game that we're playing. And so each of us will be somewhere in that, along that continuum, if you like. So I wonder if you could tell me where you think you are. You could either use the chat or you could stick it into the, so Adrian, from your point of view, you're probably at around 25%. That's cool. There's no right or wrong, by the way, because this is a developmental process that we go through. I've been around for a long time. I have lots of gray hair. No, sorry, I don't have lots of gray hair. I have gray hair. It's a little bit that I have gray hair. And it's taken me a while to shift through these from expert to achiever to catalyst in the way that I practice. 25%, Manju. Philip, for you, at 70%, that's cool. Yep, so that's a long way up the curve already. And you may be wanting to say, how do I accelerate that, or how do I do some more around that? That's cool. Anybody else? Please just share with me where do you think you are? So some people are, Marisan, you on at 45, 25, Khalid. Yep, perfect. Yep, okay. I wanted to see, Khalid made another comment. Let me just have a look. Just want to make sure I get it. All right, I see. Okay, Khalid, I understand. So some difficulty about how you can arrive and so on. Okay, perfect. I'm not sure if our folks in the program office could help you with that as well. Thinking we have had people from Kuwait, particularly, and I'm very certain that we may have had Syrian people join us previously. So we might have some ideas about that as well. So we can have a look at that. Cool. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I didn't understand the question because I didn't understand where you were from. Of course, from a geopolitical point of view, there may be restrictions that but we would welcome you here. Yeah, in my own mind. Okay. Yes, yeah, 25%, but I wonder how is the share defined? Yeah, what the team might think is going to be useful. Laura, from you, 55%, 50. Okay, so okay, Khalid, planning manager. Okay, Mackie, 50 to 60%, maybe 50%. Perfect. And yes, of course, we may think we're creating an open space. Our people may think differently. They may see it differently, and just to be aware of that might be quite useful as well. Okay, so useful to understand where you are in this expansion. And one of the things I would invite you to do is to think about what is it that you need to give away? What is it that you need to let go of in order to create the space for people to step up and step into, if that makes sense. And what is it for me that I'll need to do? And I would invite you to remember, what was it like being led by somebody that gave you the space and challenge you to step in and step up? What was that like in terms of making that happen? And I'll just draw on the slide a little bit just to give you another idea as well that might be useful. Sorry, where am I? I am, yeah. So one of the things that I find as well is that, my hope is you can see that, is that leaders are operating at a level or two below where they should be operating. And so what happens is when you do that, you push everybody down. And I'm not sure whether that resonates. If you could stick into chat, whether you notice this, either from the person above you is kind of getting in your business and getting in the weeds and getting too detailed about what is it, and they're not creating the space for you. Now, as a leader, my job is to create, this is the direction, this is where we're going, this is what success looks like, let's agree what that is, and then I want to give you space to be able to deliver that. So if anybody wants to chuck into chat whether they have experienced this or being kind of pushed down a little bit. Yeah. So Matthew, absolutely. So challenge from above for sure, and making them aware of the fact that you're dampening my spirit, and therefore I'm dampening the people below me. And how can we create the space? Because what we really want to do as leaders, I think, is to create. There's my job, and I'm going to create space for people to grow into. And that is, again, that's part of this identity shift. So the way I am seen as a leader, I've got all the answers, I know what to do, I'm going to give you direction. No, I'm going to create space for you to step up and into. And as I say, again, this idea of innovation and creativity comes from that space. It doesn't come because I have all the answers. It comes because of all the people that are closer to the context. They know how to do this better. And so this is a scary thing to do, is to take yourself away from your expertise and to build a really talented bunch of people around you. That is what we're up to in this program, is to help you to do that. Now, we call it a technology, leadership in a technology-driven world. And I want to be very open about the fact that we are not going to spend a lot of time diving into technology. And the reason for that is it's in the title, leadership in a technology-driven world. And we all know the amount of disruption, uncertainty, the volatile nature of the work that we are doing is creating lots of tension in the people that we lead. And so our invitation is, how do you lead in this disrupted, highly complex, and how do I become influential in that space of disruption? And so I want to be very clear about it. This is about leadership in that world. Of course, we'll talk to you about technology. We'll give you some ideas about the key technologies that are making a very big difference. What the result of that is that human beings feel threatened. And so how do we get them to build themselves into different roles, into different ways of operating, so that we can take away the concerns that they have, if that makes sense, in terms of what we're up to. So just to say, I want to be very clear about the title of this. We had somebody come in thinking that they were going to be focusing mainly on the technology. And I want to be clear that we focus on the human element of that, because we need to do both. Of course, we need to pivot, and we need to change, and we need to be disruptive in our technology. The minute you do that, it creates great uncertainty for the folks that you are leading. And so how do you make sure you take them with you along the change curve? And that's, again, part of the program is to think about how do we influence the people that we're leading in this place as well. So there's a question. I just want to have a look. Adrian. I'm not sure I understand the question. Is this playing catch up, and for the leaders to catch up with whom? I'm not sure I understand the question. I wish I could be talking to you, Adrian. I really do. My preference is always to interact and to understand before I say more. Sorry. Let me make a point that I haven't made. It's not that one is better than the other. In certain circumstances, experts are going to be needed. In certain circumstances, being an achiever is going to be better, because it's highly outcomes focused and more short-term, let's deliver. And catalytic leaders are the people creating these open spaces and the culture that you're looking for. And our ability as a leader to move up and down is really important. So it's not one or the other. What the really cool thing is, though, I never lose my expertise. I never lose my ability to be highly outcomes focused with my team. and I can also provide the conditions, if you like. So as the conductor, my job is to create the conditions for the orchestra to have shiny eyes, and therefore the audience has shiny eyes. Our ability, I think, as leaders, if we can do all three, that makes us really powerful. So I hope that that answers your question, Adrian. It's not one is better than the other. I think if you're aspiring to be an enterprise leader, then being a catalytic leader is going to be really good stead. And at the same time, if you are an expert in a particular function, let's say it's ethics and compliance, or it's a regulatory or whatever it might be, you need to be the expert who then is able to achieve through their team and is able to influence the organization in a positive way. That is how it works. So leading self, leading others, and leading the enterprise is going to be useful. So I hope that's useful, Adrian. If you wouldn't mind giving me a tick that that's what you meant, just to make sure that I've got this, if you don't mind. Khalid, I believe the recording is going to be available to folks, so I think you'll be able to see this again. But absolutely, I believe that that's the case. And okay, so Mackie, I just want to just read your question. I agree with you. Absolutely. So Mackie, thank you. And what a great question, because absolutely, we are hampered by the ability for people to step up and step in. That is not going to happen unless you create the conditions and you start to give people projects to work on, stretch assignments. How do you start to get them to come up with answers rather than coming to you for answers? And so it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And what will happen as you start to invite people in and getting them to step up and step in, you'll be surprised at how quickly they'll do that. It's been my experience, both from a personal leadership experience and all the programs that I run, people are amazed at the readiness of people to step up and step in if they're given the opportunity. And I want to tell you that 90% of your people are gasping for that opportunity. That's my experience, and the research tells us that, is that people are looking for the ability to grow. The greatest human need is an ability to grow and to learn. That's one of the greatest human needs. And you'll think about that in your own development. Probably where you had a tough time was when you were told, just do this job, stay in your lane, stay in your box, and you weren't able to expand and grow. And that's what we're talking about in creating those conditions and making that happen. And I just want to reiterate something that I said a little earlier. The analogy, yeah, I'll use it anyway. So it's like a Russian doll. You have those Russian dolls. I have the expert doll, and wrapped around it is an achiever doll, and wrapped around that is the catalyst doll. And I can play the role in each one of those. And Mackie, to your point, how do I create the space? How do I be purposeful about inviting people up and in? It's easy for somebody to come to you and you say, just go away and do this. And the person, how many of you have had, again, it's difficult to get a reaction on this, you might want to put up your hands just to signify whether this happened to you or not, where you say to somebody, they come to you with a problem and you go, okay, do this. And they go away, and 2 days later they come back and they said, I've thought about what you said, and by the way, I don't think it quite fits the context, and we need to talk about that again. So now you're reworking the same conversation because you've told them what to do. How many of you have had that? If you wouldn't mind just reacting, either just sticking up your hand on Zoom, you have that ability. Yeah, so there some people have, not many at this point in time, that have stuck up their hand that said, yeah, I've had that. And so what's useful when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this problem, is to say, what do you want to do with your problem? What's the ideal outcome here? And you start to have a different type of conversation, and that creates an opportunity for them to grow, and they feel like their thinking matters here. That's really useful, is to create those conditions for people to say, oh, my ideas matter, my thinking matters here. So that's why the coaching mindset is quite a useful piece to have, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to clear those drawings for the moment, and let me just do that. So you're just seeing if something. Okay, cool, Adrian, perfect. Okay, Adrian, I'm glad I answered your question in the way that you wanted me to. Again, and I have an anonymous question, which I think is a great question. So how do cultural factors and gender? One of the biggest challenges leaders are going to have going forward is the ability to lead the amount of diversity that is emerging. And if you think about the definitions of diversity, if I go back 5 years, there are many, many different definitions of diversity than there were 5 years ago. It's been one of the most rapid transformations in terms of the definitions of diversity. And so as a leader, do I have the capacity? Do I have the ability and the self-awareness to hold all of that diversity? And there is no question, all the research supports the fact that if you have a diverse team, your results will be spectacular, you get better ideas, etc. And there's a tipping point. And the tipping point is the team and is the leader able to hold the amount of diversity that there is? And if the team and the leader is not, the performance starts to drop pretty rapidly. So having too much diversity for the capacity of the team and the leader is really important to pay attention to. And it's exactly the same from a cultural point of view. And so, yes, as a leader, my job is to cease to be the expert at a particular subject matter and to become an expert on human beings and how to get the best from human beings, different cultures, and to really step into that space. Now, the interesting thing about culture and diversity is that at the heart of everything is a human being. Human beings are complex, they are paradoxical. And a really great leader understands that and says that I'm not going to lead on the basis of this is how I do me and everybody fit in with me. How I'm going to lead is I'm going to meet people where they are. I'm going to be attuned and alive to what it is they need from me as a leader so that I can get the best for them and create the conditions that support them. So you're absolutely right. They do play a role. There's no doubt about that. And at the same time, I can become really good at being able to do that. Yesterday, I was in Dubai. I went and I had, I think I had 22 people in the room that I was talking to, and there were 14 different nationalities. And let me tell you, when we did the work together, it was easy to see the commonalities. And we often focus on the differences when actually there's a lot that is in common. So doing that and being a leader who can hold those different cultural aspects is going to be really important as well. And we'll talk about that as we go through the program. So my hope is that that answers that question. Thank you. Okay, so let me move on just in terms of some of the people that you'll get to meet. I will spend time with you the entire time. So I'm with you all of the time. I'll wrap up the days. I will teach some of the sessions. So I'll lead some of them, particularly around purpose, around cognitive diversity. I will also lead that session. But we've got lots of people who are going to talk to you. Russell talked about that one-to-one conversation beforehand. I'll have up to an hour's conversation with you to talk about you, about your context, why you want to come on the program, to make sure that we are able to deliver what you need to. And I will be very open in that conversation about what we might not, if you say to me, I want to do this, and it may be something that I'll say, we're not going to attend to that, but we can find a different way to do that. I'm also going to invite you to have a conversation with me post the program. And that one-to-one conversation post the program is to discuss with you, what are you putting in practice, and making this really real and practical for you. So that's part of what I'm up to. And then I'm available all the way through as a support, as a coach. I'm a professional coach. I've been so for 15, 16 years. So that's what my real passion is making that happen. So we'll spend some time. Chris will talk to you about the 7 or 8 technologies that are really disrupting the world. We want to make you aware of those, and we'll create a session where what you're going to do is to talk about what is it that I need to pay attention to? What are the technologies that are disrupting me at the moment? And then what might I want to do with that? So that's going to be, Chris will talk to you about that. Rory Simpson is the Chief Learning Officer at Telefonica. What a wonderful speaker, highly energizing, and he brings a really unique perspective on the leadership concepts that I've been talking about. Well, I think you really enjoy him. Andre is a senior partner in my personal business, and he will run the coaching session. It'll be highly interactive. We'll ask you to talk about topics that are real to you. We want you to practice on real stuff, not on role plays. We don't think that you learn much from role plays. Celia will talk to you about emotional intelligence. She'll talk to you about authentic leadership, and that's going to be really useful to have in creating your leadership signature. Omar will talk about your personal brand. And we'll talk to Kath Bishop. Now, Kath is a wonderful speaker, and she brings an incredibly unique perspective to leadership. So an Olympian and a diplomat in Kosovo, negotiating peace treaties. Now, just those two stressful resilience requirements are going to be really useful for you to learn from. So Kath will speak to us about that. So I just wanted to give you an overview of all of those. Just checking if there are any other questions. And we have. Leah, what a wonderful question. Should we invite our team to this process through material benefits? I just want to make sure I understand the question. You mean attend the program? If you mean attend the program, everybody will learn common language. It will be an incredible accelerator for their development. There's no doubt about that. So that's a really good idea. If you're able to do that, it would be brilliant for them, because then everybody will be on the same page about what you're up to. And obviously you could implement what you learn with your team as well. And we'll give you some steers on how you might do on some of the subjects in making that happen. So certainly could do that as well. Yeah. Russell, I wonder if there are any questions for me just about what we've had so far. Or Russell, I'm going to hand over to you, because I know we have about 10 minutes left, and we can leave some questions for at the end as well. Yeah,
Franz, that's brilliant. Why don't we do that? Let me just there's just a couple of points I think would be really interesting for folks on the line to kind of hear about, and then we'll leave a good chunk of time for questions. But Franz, I've heard you talk through those slides probably like 4 or 5 times now, and I get something more every time I listen to them. So
thank you.
So thanks very much. And there was a question in the chat about, and will we make the recording available? Yes, we will.
Yes.
So you can kind of pause and replay as well as we go along. But I just wanted to kind of let you all know that you will get a certificate for completing the program as well. It will be one that has the name of this program on it. You won't get a certificate in FinTech, I've just noticed. So you will get a certificate of completion. You can kind of post that on your LinkedIn profile and print it off and kind of put it on the wall at home as well, which is always nice. But also beyond the certificate, I think what we found with this program, and Franz, you'll kind of probably have a comment on this, but we actually build kind of really strong networks of participants as well. So the learning is fantastic, but Franz and the team do an amazing job of bringing insight and helping you think differently about your leadership practice. But additionally, you learn a lot from each other on the program.
Absolutely.
These are very diverse cohorts, people from all ranges of all kind of different verticals and organizations from the private sector, public sector. Sometimes we get small teams of people. I think Leif, you were mentioning potentially bringing a group of people with you. We've had that before. It works really well. So all of those things are great, but you'll get a lot from your fellow participants as well as from us at Imperial as well. So we have 10 minutes for questions. I know many people are posting questions on the way through, which is great, but if there are any more questions, type away in the chat or the Q&A. We'll pick them up wherever you put them. But selfishly, I have a question for you, Franz, as well. Maybe.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
So, and I just wondered if you thought, I mean, for me, looking at the news around the world at the moment, we've just come through a pandemic. There's a lot of instability out there geopolitically at the moment as well. It feels to me like a really good time to kind of do this program. And I think, so my question is, like, what is it about kind of like this sort of unstable nature of the world right now and the amount of change we hear in various different countries about economic pressures potentially coming down the pipe as well. And I just wondered what if you had a view on why now, if you're going to kind of focus on your learning around leadership, is now a good time, and what's all this uncertainty kind of going to do for leadership, and why is it so important in that context?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. It put me on the spot in terms of the current geopolitical nature of the world. What I've come to learn and understand, and I think the faculty understands, is that if we develop capacities, and I'm using the word really purposefully. We talk about skills development, we talk about mindset shifts. Yes, those are important, but also the capacity to hold tough situations. So in a tough situation, do I have the strength of character? Do I have the ability to hold that ambiguity, the stress and pressure that we're in, and to create conditions where people can be at their best despite some of the terrible things that are happening around the world? So I think it's a really good time to examine what that is for you, because when we're on that solid foundation of who we are, what we stand for, what we're trying to make happen in the world, we create a calming effect on the folks around us in that disruption in order to, to operate at a different level. So I think it is an ideal time actually to examine what is my current practice and what do I need to step into in order to make the difference I'm trying to make.
Great, that's really helpful. Thanks, Franz.
Okay, no worries. I hope I'm going to say this correctly. Is it Sitalili? Sitalili? I don't know. Sitalali. Okay, I don't know if I've said it correctly, and I apologize if I messed it up. So you said very specifically, what are the main leadership challenges that non-tech firms encounter in the face of technological disruption all along the business process, from strategy, selling your products? I think some of the main leadership challenges for me, again, I'm going to repeat something that I said, but I think is really important. We need to be agile in the way we respond to customers, the changing context that we're in. So the only way you can do that, and so often, I've just finished a HR transformation program. I've led the mindset shift that needs to take place, the skill shift that needs to take place in order for people to operate differently to make the transformation. All of us, unfortunately, what we focus on are the processes, the structures, etc. Well, that's what we focus on in making change. We redraw the lines, we redraw the boxes, and we say, well, that's done. And no, it's not. It's the human element of change that the reason why change programs don't succeed. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is how do we as leaders become expert in helping people make the shift? And we all know the change curve, you go from denial to anger, etc., through to, okay, I accept and I know what I'm up to. How do we smooth that line and make it quicker? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And that's why the program is about leadership in that technology-driven world, in that disrupted world, if that makes sense. So I hope that's useful for you, certainly. Yeah, I hope that's okay. Other questions for us? I see some more. I think the biggest leadership challenge is making the shift from task and delivery to relationship and then task, or people and then task. And the why I'm so passionate about that is that it's my experience that if I do that, if I make that expansion and I make that shift to people, I'm going to get more discretionary effort. I'm going to get better and more creative options and outcomes. And I think for many, that's the biggest challenge, is that we want to control things. So being alive to the possibilities and the options that are being brought to you by your people, by your customers, etc., and responding in a way that's agile, I think is probably the greatest challenge. The second one is, I'm going to come back to this diversity subject. It is going to exercise a lot of minds in the next 2 to 3 years on how I respond in a very diverse culture, very diverse organization, and the definitions of diversity and the challenges that brings, because you're going to have people that are not going to respond well to that diversity. How do you help them to make that shift? It's the same as a technology expansion, if you like. It's a disruptive force, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's going to be tough for some people to make that shift. How do you help them to do that? How do we make sure that we're getting the best out of all of the differences that and value the differences that are around us? I think is one of the biggest. And then, again, another challenge I think is in the climate. I like the idea of context and climate. We're in a tough place in the world for many, many reasons. I mean, what's happening in Ukraine is major. What's happening in the US is interesting. What's happening to stock markets right now and the pressures that brings. There's a lot of disruption. The cost of living in the UK, what's happening to people that are struggling. All of that is how do you lead through that in a way that's positive without being, woo-woo about these things. It's not about being woo-woo, it's about being practical. What can we do to foster creativity in the face of all of those challenges, I think, are at play. So I hope that's useful as well. Yeah.
Franz, we're running out of time. We're getting to the top of the hour. There are just 2 more questions. I wondered if we could just kind of cover the last 2 off, and then if people are able just to stay a minute or so after,
Yeah.
No, that's great. There's just one question here, what from Adrian.
Yeah.
While on this journey / shifting, at what point and how would you come to realize your limits? Is the question. I'll give you a moment to think about that, and I'll cover off the next question from Matthew. Is there a big difference between the virtual and live versions of the course? How's your experience of the networking and engagement during the virtual course? So we do run a virtual program as well, and it's been very successful over the last couple of years. We had to run programs virtually for obvious reasons around the pandemic, and the learning outcomes are identical. It's a really strong program. We'd love to see you in person in London. We're really excited about running the program, but we understand that that might not be for everyone, and we have a great experience that we can create, as well as the networking and engagement. It's different, obviously, because it's virtual, but you still nonetheless get a really valuable experience. And we're running that next edition of the virtual program in September. But as I said, we'd love to see you in London, Matthew, if you're able to make it. Franz, just over to you to answer that final question, and then we'll wrap.
No worries at all. Matthew, just to say to you that obviously when it's spread out over 8 weeks, you have an ability to practice some of the stuff that we're talking about in the between, and it'll be different in the face-to-face program. That's probably the most significant difference that there is, but everything else is the same. And Adrian, to your point, I think you'll know that for yourself in terms of where is it that I want to play? What kind of leader do I wish to become? How do I want to? And that will be led by your aspirations. So I think if you want to be a chief executive one day, then stepping up that continuum, if you like, to Catalyst is going to be the right thing to do. And you might say, actually, I'm really comfortable in my function and what I'm up to, and I'm going to be more between Achiever and Catalyst. That's going to be a better place for me. That's a personal choice that you will make. And it will also, I think you'll discover that when you look at your leadership signature, where you crystallize purpose, identity, who am I, how do I want to show up? What do I value? What are the skills and capabilities that I want to develop and grow? And then what behaviors? How do I want to behave? Because all of the above is useful until you don't behave in that way and you're not in alignment with that behavior and the environment you're trying to create. So I think from your point of view, it depends on what your aspirations are, and by the way, what naturally fits you as well. That's going to be really important. I find so often leaders are bending themselves out of shape to try and fit a context, and that's not useful. So making a personal decision about what this is for me, we can certainly talk that through in both those conversations and through the program as well. So hopefully that's useful, Adrian.
Thanks, Franz. And
okay.
And we're just over time actually, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone on the line today for your engagement and your questions. Some really great questions that have come through. And actually, Franz, again, thank you very much for your time. I know that, and it's very clear that you enjoyed this stuff as well. But yes. Our thanks are.
There's another question in here that I just want to answer. The anonymous person again has said harder in the NHS. I think certain contexts are more difficult than the others, and I don't want to vanilla that in any way. That is true. Your context will matter, and what you are able to do. Again, my invitation is experiment into and start to see the shifts that take place when you experiment. So I'm not blind to the fact that different contexts are more difficult than others, for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Franz. So if you are keen to join us in London, we'll send you the slide deck. There are contact details in the slide deck as well. So just reach out to us and kind of talk to us in the executive education team, and we'll get you signed up to the program. And we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible with us on campus in a few weeks' time. And thanks very much, everybody, and have a good afternoon and enjoy the weekend that's coming ahead. Thanks, everybody.
Take great care, folks. Take good care. Bye-bye.